Hello, beautiful souls. Today's episode is so good. And before we jump in, I have some exciting news to share. If you've ever wondered where you're blocking money, this is for you. I've created a free quiz to diagnose your money wounds so you can heal them and unblock yourself to receive more money. Just go to moneywoundsquiz.com and answer 6 quick questions to get your insanely accurate and potent results. And if you're loving my vibe and want to work one-on-one to call in more feminine energy wealth, I would love to hear from you. You can shoot me a DM on social media or go to emilywilcox.com to learn more. Hello, and welcome to the M Makes Money show. I've got a great episode for you guys today. Before I dive into it, you know that I like to share a little bit about life and just what's going on, what's happening. Well, I'm happy to report that we have survived another atmospheric river, torrential downpour, and hail right here in Southern California. It was hailing so much that it actually accumulated and looked like snow on the ground. So that is the closest thing that any of these SoCal kids will ever get to actual snow here where we live. Of course, we take the kids up into the mountains to go skiing and all of that kind of stuff. But my daughter also told me, Mom, my teacher showed us a video of thunder and it was so scary. You guys, it was thundering this weekend too. And I just died laughing because I'm like, Faye, where your dad and I grew up, we did not learn about thunder by our teacher showing us a video of it. Like it thundered and lightninged all the time. There would be crazy storms. And yeah, it is kind of scary, but it's also kind of cool and it's also kind of fun. So I love that our little Southern California family got to experience some crazy weather this weekend and we survived and thrived. It totally wiped out all of the sports that we normally would have done. So we got to have a more chill weekend, which felt really nice. We all went up to church at like a meditation center that we used to go to all the time for Sunday service. Cause like it never works out anymore that all 4 of us have a Sunday morning free. So it was kind of nice to walk down memory lane as far as that was concerned. We realized that one of these favorite little brunch spots that we went to, we're like, okay, we haven't been there since before the pandemic, which meant that JJ was 2. And now here he is. He's almost 5. Like it just was a fun moment. And part of the reason I share this stuff is it truly is in these small little moments that our life is woven together. You know, it's like the small things are the big things. And the things that seem so big are often small. It's like whenever we feel like we're in some sort of existential crisis or money is a problem, or we're thinking about switching careers, or like just these big question marks that we have. When we look at those in hindsight, they don't feel that big anymore. But when we look at the small little family memories in hindsight, they feel big. They feel like the important things, like, oh, his little voice. Oh, the way he used to do that thing. Do you remember? Like, though, that's the fabric of life. And to me, part of my mission and part of the reason I have this podcast and I do this work in coaching is to show, to be my own best testimonial and to really live life out loud and show the behind the scenes. And that, yeah, even though I'm running, or helping to run, I really should say, a 7-figure business and running a multi-6-figure coaching business, like the important stuff is the little things, because they're not little to me. They matter a lot. I really care about them. I really care how I'm showing up as a mom. I really care how I'm showing up as a wife. I really care how I'm showing up as a friend. And, the business stuff, which I love, and used to be so important and all consuming to me, is just more right-sized and more balanced in the whole equation of things in a way that feels really good. So speaking of balance, this episode is going to be so good. You're going to hear me just give a little live mini training on masculine and feminine energy, and specifically how it pertains to our business. So I'm sharing, what is it? Like, what are the 4 types of energy and how do they show up for us? What are the characteristics? Why do we need both of them? What does balance look like? How does it apply in a business environment? And how does it connect to us walking the joyous path of millions in our business? So without further ado, let's jump right in. Hello, everyone. Emily Wilcox here, talking about masculine and feminine energy in business. What is it and why does it matter? I will say that this is a topic that comes up very, very regularly as I'm coaching 6 and 7 figure women entrepreneurs. And although we don't always have the vernacular for it, at the heart of many, many issues that happen in our business, leadership, delegation, hiring, firing, having boundaries, enjoying life, all comes down to balanced masculine and feminine energy. Now, I actually think it really is so helpful to have vocabulary around this and be able to define what is feminine energy. What's the difference between the wounded feminine and the divine feminine, and the wounded masculine and the divine masculine? And how am I tapping into these different energies? So I'm going to start with the basics because I think it's helpful to not make any assumptions here. And even if you've heard this before, you may find that you gain a new nuance this time, or that there's some piece of it that you had never heard quite this way. So let's just go over what are these different energies. Now, I first just want to say that although they are gendered terms, and I think this is an unfortunate piece around this topic, they actually don't have to do with the genders per se. So whether you're a man, a woman, whether you're non-binary, you will have masculine and feminine energy. So yin and yang energy is another way to look at it that's not as gendered, but I'm not as familiar with that terminology. So I'm using masculine and feminine energy, but it's really important to understand that it's true of all genders. We all have both of these energies inside of us and need both of these energies. And if you're a man and you're spending a lot of time in your feminine energy, it doesn't mean that you're now emasculated or that anything is wrong with your masculinity. If you're a woman that's spending a lot of time in the masculine, again, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your feminine energy. That said, often we will find that there is a natural balance for us. And it is true that it does tend to fall along traditional cisgender guidelines where women do a little better with a little more feminine energy and men do better with a little more masculine energy, even though we both need and want both. So the sacred masculine energy, the divine masculine, is very present, very aware, structured. It's the energy of holding space, of discerning. It's a very decisive energy. It has a clear purpose. This energy is so beautiful and it's so critical because when we think about a river, the divine masculine energy are the banks of the river. And without that, we wouldn't have a way for the water to flow. Now, the feminine energy, we'll talk about the sacred feminine first, and then we'll get to the wounded parts of both. So sacred feminine is very expressive, very intuitive, very free-flowing, very connected with love, compassionate, creative, radiant. So again, in order for this river to be free flowing, it has to have the banks of the sacred masculine in order for it to work. So both energies are present, both are equally important in order to create a healthy and thriving ecosystem. Now, there are unhealthy or shadow side or wounded sides of each of these energies. So the wounded masculine is more forceful, more dominating, overthinking, overdoing, controlling, and demanding. I will get into that more in a minute, but I spent a lot of my life living in wounded masculine energy, primarily just the overthinking and overdoing and wanting to have control of everything. The wounded feminine represses her truth, feels unworthy, has shame and guilt, has weak boundaries, is codependent, often is over apologetic or over explains. And so we can see that the wounded feminine is not ideal either, right? Just feeling like we don't have any boundaries, like we're a doormat, like we're always apologizing for things, like we will abandon ourselves in order to help someone else. And again, this is not true of one gender or another, but it's just true of that energy that you can tap into and that is often present in, unhealed capacities. So I want to talk about this in the context of business, because I think this is the place that this energy doesn't get talked about enough. So we're talking about what it is. Why is it important? So it's important for a variety of reasons. First of all, you are already playing in these 4 different energies in some degree or another. Everyone's going to have a different balance. And this is the same concept that I teach in money wound medicine. When you can name something, it's incredibly empowering, because all of a sudden, the thing that you don't like or the thing that you feel is limiting you is not you. So if you're spending a bunch of time in the wounded masculine, for example, and you're very domineering and you're very controlling and you're just overdoing all the time, you very well might think that that's just you and that's just the way that you are. And you might think that you're broken, or because it's part of your identity, that it would be difficult for you to change. Same thing if you're spending a lot of time in your wounded feminine and you just feel like, I don't have any boundaries, and why did I say yes to that thing that I didn't want to do? And there's something wrong with me. And you're apologizing for other people's mistakes, and you're over explaining your position, and you're not really speaking your truth. You may very well think that there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your identity, and that you're broken. Whereas when you can name it and be like, oh, there I went into the wounded feminine again. When I'm in the wounded feminine, that version of me doesn't have boundaries. That version of me is always apologizing. That version of me doesn't feel worthy, doesn't feel like she can speak her truth. You feel how different that feels when we speak about it that way and we name it as the energy versus just making it us and ourselves. And it also helps us diagnose where we need a little more energy of one or another. And by the way, this does not always have to be sourced within ourselves. This can be sourced through hiring. This can be sourced through our spouse or partner. This can be sourced even through software and systems and SOPs. Like, there are many, many ways that we can leverage the type of energy that we desire, but we need to understand what it is first and name it. So the river analogy, if the river doesn't have banks, all of a sudden, what is it? It's a bunch of water that's like pooled like a swamp, right? And there's a lot of stagnancy. There's not movement. There's no guidance. There's no direction for the water to flow. The fix is more sacred masculine. We need those river banks. We need that structure that's providing the support, that's holding the space, that's giving a clear direction, that's giving a clear purpose to the river and the water. So then all of a sudden, the water can start flowing again. meaning the sacred feminine can be in creation, in flow, can be expressive, can be more connected, can be more intuitive. If we're all in our feminine, it doesn't work. But if we're all in our masculine and all of a sudden those riverbanks get pushed closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer together, you can feel how much pressure that creates and how much lack of free flow there is. All of a sudden, it feels almost claustrophobic. It feels highly pressurized. It feels very forced. Now we're in the wounded masculine, right? So understanding, being able to name these energies, both in terms of being able to name what you want and what you need more of, and also naming when you're in an unhealthy version of this so that you can better get back to what feels like true balance for you. So I want to talk about this in the context of business and how it shows up in our businesses and why it matters and why it's important. When we are in our wounded masculine, we will have trouble delegating. We won't let go of the responsibility. We will micromanage. We often will feel like we're in charge everywhere. So especially as women and high-powered women, we will feel in charge at work, and then we'll get home and we'll feel in charge of the household and the decision-making and the kids, and we won't turn it off. And then we'll feel in charge with our spouse as well, which really kills any romance in the relationship. So when these things are out of balance, it impacts every area of life. But even just in the business, if you're spending too much time in the wounded masculine, you're putting a very low cap on what you're able to achieve in your business without burnout. So if you're always in the overthinking and the overdoing and needing to be in control of everything, then your business can only grow to a certain extent before you're the bottleneck, before people don't want to work for you, or before you just feel completely burnt out and like you have no more to give and you couldn't possibly grow any further, right? If you're spending too much time in the wounded masculine, or the wounded feminine in your business, then you're going to be on an uncomfortable emotional roller coaster where clients are walking all over you or your employees are walking all over you. You don't feel worthy on your own. So things that happen in business hit you really hard if a client leaves, or if something bad happens, if you get some bad press, or if an employee leaves you, you just feel so abandoned. You feel completely unworthy. You have trouble showing up in your confidence. You have trouble stepping into thought leadership. So again, you can see how you wouldn't be able to grow your business to the same degree because you're so caught up in this emotional roller coaster and it's taking such an energetic toll that you're not able to take on more. Like, that is plenty. I've done so much apologizing and over explaining, and I've done so much abandoning of myself to help other people. I've repressed my truth to the point where, I can't do more of any of that. So these issues absolutely show up in our business, in our leadership, in what our schedule looks like, in our ability to leverage team, leverage systems, leverage SOPs. So when we're wanting more time freedom, when we're wanting more healthy, sustainable business growth, when we want to be able to turn off at the end of the workday and then really step into our home environment without feeling like we have to do everything there or be further depleted or play out these same patterns, we need to understand masculine, feminine energy and how to balance it. So it's an absolutely crucial skill. It's something that will change every aspect of your life. And that's why it's so integral to the work that I do with 6 and 7 figure female entrepreneurs. Is we're looking at, how do you grow your business and love life more? How do you be really present and intentional and making memories and having fun with your kids when you're with your kids. And you're not also checking Slack and also checking email and having your nervous system on high alert about something that could be happening with work. How do you go from being a very powerful, capable woman, CEO, boss, leader, to having a beautiful and romantic relationship with your partner where you're letting him or her take the lead and you're receiving and not so much in your giving? These are things that we cover inside of Fempire, which is my program on balancing masculine and feminine energy and truly embodying the feminine energy CEO. And I teach you how to identify where you're out of balance, how to get into balance, what balance looks like for you, and the specifics of the tactics on how to apply it to different areas of business, to your schedule, to your boundaries, to your leadership, to your hiring. And it really is such a beautiful program. It's one of my favorite programs to teach because when we make these changes, all of a sudden explosive results can happen in the business where the business can double. And before it was just trickling by with a little bit of month-over-month growth. And every other aspect of life gets so much better as well. So Fempire is currently on early bird, and I will drop the link for anyone that's interested. I've coached multi-seven-figure women agency owners through these exact same issues with just tremendous outcomes. And it would be my absolute honor to do it with you if it's feeling aligned. Thank you so much for tuning in. My DMs are open, so feel free to slide in if you have any questions about these important topics. And I look forward to chatting with you again soon or seeing you in an upcoming program. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If it resonated with you, tag me online at mmakesmoney. Feel free to share it. Let me know what your top takeaways were. And I would love to see you inside of the Fempire program. So we'll drop a link in the show notes for you to look at it and purchase if it feels aligned. You're welcome to slide into my DMs if you have any questions about it. This program truly is epic. This will be my third time teaching it, and it just gets better and better as I go. And it's the embodiment of and kind of the accumulation of all the work that I do in my private coaching and in my semi-private coaching inside of my mastermind, put together into one program where we really get into the nitty-gritty specifics and the how, and you're able to walk away after this program feeling like a new person and having some really tangible action items to change the way that you're showing up in your business and at home so that you feel more joyous and that money can flow to you more easily. So thank you so much as always for tuning in. It means so much to me, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. Before you go, I have something fun to share. Now, when you leave a review of the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, take a quick screenshot and send it to hi@emilywilcox.com. You'll be entered into a drawing to win a free one-on-one Voxer coaching day with me, and you help the show reach more new listeners. Such a win-win. I also invite you to follow me on Instagram at mmakesmoney and to jump into my free Telegram community, The Money Club, which is linked in the show notes. Until next time, I'm sending you all the magic money vibes.